Call the meeting to order. This is the Wareham Finance Committee. It's Wednesday, September 14th at 6:30 p.m. May I ask clerk to call the roll?
We got Thomas Hanson, Thomas Worthen, Jody Smith, Dominic Camarano, Zari Stefanski, myself, Norma Scoggin, and Bernard Fish.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is the discussion of the minus school expenses. That has been an issue that's been going on and a concern for the selectmen, especially when they're signing the warrants, that they're seeing items on it that is disturbing in the context of the timing of the item itself. i.e., I've used like a Nerf football, and it's come up on the warrant as a purchase, and they said here it is well over a year after, not over a year, but almost a year that the construction's been completed, and we've gone through the finishing of the previous school year as well as the start of this school year. And just to, I've got something on the corner here. To go through, we had the initial permit for ordering or for building the school was the town meeting authorized $90 million of borrowing maximum. We're up currently at around 84 million. And that's just an accounting of what we expanded so far. There has been borrowing of approximately 25 million, and that would be the town share of the overall package. Those are not final figures, however. We still have some more invoices which are outstanding from PMA, Mount Vernon, excuse me, that is me. From Mount Vernon, from PMA, as well as Bacon Construction. They are construction invoices. They're not individual items from the school department, and they are covered as far as reimbursed over with MSBA for the total construction costs. That's a different issue. The issue that the selectmen had expressed through Alan Slavin as selectman regarding the purchase of certain items within the school system and not capital items. We've analyzed them, I have, and we've found, and from my point of view, the order date, the PO order date was in some cases, many cases, a year ago, or within the 6 months starting with June 1 of last year up to December 31, when the school was still under construction, so to speak, and they were ordering material for their classroom use, teaching, etc. They were ordering some items that were for the cafeteria and the like. In looking at it from my point of view, is those items were ordered then. The items are showing up as invoices now only because of supply chain problems. That's my opinion. I'll let your decision. We'll have it tonight. The invoices have been placed on hold for the past 2 weeks. I've been asked about today if releasing them. I said no, not until after you people have reviewed and made a decision if you feel it's appropriate to continue on and pay these invoices. The only large items are there's two snow blowers, a stand-up lawnmower, and a tractor. The only thing that is not reimbursable would be the tractor, and that's specifically said by MSBA. Everything else is reimbursable. They are over in the utility shed at the Wareham Elementary School. As far as reimbursement is concerned, though, we have furniture and fixtures, an original estimate for the project of $2,400,000 and change. We are allowed by MSBA in the furniture and fixtures line item 1.2 million as reimbursable funds. We've expended that a long time ago with all these items. It could be equipment for cafeteria, equipment for the gymnasiums, equipment for classrooms, some chairs, etc. all the small items, nothing big. A lot of the large items, such as furniture for the building itself, electronic equipment for the building itself. The committee voted to move that into the construction or building stage because we have more reimbursement over there and did not detract from the reimbursement available, the 1.2 million that MSBA says is available for furniture and fixtures. So all the items that we have left are rather small. The two forms that I gave you, one is the last fiscal year, and one is from Kristen, which is the items, invoices that have been paid up to this point. So everything has been paid with the exception, and I think there's about 4 or 5, Kristen, are there not? There was 3 that you sent me notice of, and I think Chad has a couple more, but those are construction items. But those are the only other invoices we're aware of at this time.
Right, there's some on hold, some are waiting for contract approval through the contract approval process. And mostly from Union Office Interiors and RDC School Furnishings that we're waiting for invoices. But there's also those 3 warrants, I believe, that I sent you
Yes.
that are the ones that are on hold right now.
Yes.
That have some invoices in them
And
as well.
there's a large one, 160,000, but that's from Chad Construction, I believe, for Beacon or PMA,
Yes, that one was 112,000 from Bacon.
112, okay.
The other 2 were the FFE. There was a $160,000 and a $32,000 that's currently waiting for approval for processing.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions or any concerns? Tom?
We already bought these things,
Yes,
so, and we've received them all,
for the most part, yes,
so figure out how you're gonna pay for them, but we own them.
indeed. And we do have the monies there. Of the amount that, I think we borrowed under the 3 bonds, about 25 million, which is gonna be our share anyway. And there's about 660,000 untouched as yet, which more than enough to cover what we have. And so I don't think it's a problem. Does anyone else have a concern?
I have a question. So Bernie, your concern was that these were purchased after the time limit, or that they were purchased wrong, that they should have been part of the project? What was your major concern that brought all this up, with the slip?
There were these small items that were popping up.
Okay, but you didn't believe they were part of the project, or purchased late, or what was the reason?
No,
I mean,
but here we are in September.
I understand that.
There was an item come up on the invoice that needs to be paid of it, let's say, using the Nerf's football,
But it was ordered back when?
September, October of last year.
That's
That
when
was
the
the
price
original-
had gone on, right?
Yeah, that was the original PO date, and the PO contained, let's say, 5 items.
Right.
One was that particular item, for some need, it wasn't on the shelf, no supply,
Okay.
and so the vendor has just shipped it. And so now he's just sending us the bill for
No,
that.
I understand all that.
Yeah,
So what was your major concern for holding back on paying for these items?
just clarifying that was the issue,
Okay.
that it wasn't,
And you now feel that was the issue? You feel okay with this?
I'm perfectly happy with it.
Then I am too.
Yeah, again, I mean, when I first saw this many months ago, and I brought my concerns up to Bernie, and I'll use the Nerf balls for an example, that type of thing, and I didn't understand why these things were coming up, $300 here, $400 there. And, I think I've heard enough, and whatever recommendation Bernie makes, I'm gonna certainly follow now. I mean, I've made my concerns known, and that's that, but,
So, I mean,
it's, at some point, you gotta move on.
Okay, look, I was with Bernie when we spent 2 hours the other Wednesday morning going through everything.
Yeah.
And, looking at it from an audit point of view, the funds were, it was committed with purchase orders. Funds were expended, what was ordered was needed for the school. there may have been some issue of how maybe it should have been budgeted regular school budget as an operating expense. But it would have still been needed anyway, no matter where the funds come. The only rub is that maybe there were some expenses here that were going to be paid over 20 years through a bond, as opposed to through a current operating expense.
So you pay a little.
But, you know, it's a done deal. There's nothing here.
I'm agreeing, you know, that, and I'll make a motion for whatever the recommendation from the chair is.
Do we need a motion, Bernie?
The one question that you brought up was that they were supposed to spend, and I don't have the numbers right there, $1.5 million for furniture, and they spent $2.5 million for furniture. How did they get the approval to get the additional furniture?
That was reimbursable. They still need the
No,
furniture.
they're reimbursable regardless of what we buy in the furniture and fixtures.
But there was a limit on how much you could charge to furniture and fixtures.
I think you said it was budgeted like 2.4.
We budgeted, we didn't necessarily limit, it was budgeted.
Okay.
But it was budgeted at 2.4, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
But 1.2 is reimbursable.
It's reimbursable.
So half of it is reimbursable, but
Got
it was all budgeted.
Okay, but that all got approved in advance, and you knew
Yes.
you were doing what you were doing.
Yes, the building
So-
committee had approved all of that, we worked at those line items. Because in a way, we had more to spend because of the reimbursement monies we get from MSBA. So that was 1.2 mil, so add that to the 2.4. And you don't necessarily buy more than that, but it's not gonna cost you as much to
Okay.
get the same quantity. And the issue, like we bought 2 snow blowers. Well, if you look in Degas, there's that front walk right in front of the main building. That's all that's needed to be snow blowed. And now you look at the walkways in the new elementary. And as far as the lawnmower, they got a little bit more lawn, plus 2 soccer fields up and back maintained. So I think all the equipment that they were asked for has been appropriate. There's been suggestion that someone may have ordered a lot of stuff, maybe, and it may be a peer, but I think everything is necessary. And as a courtesy, Alan, I'll ask Alan, because Alan, on the selectman side, had brought this to our attention. Do you have any comment to make, Alan?
Yeah, make life easy. Good evening, everyone. My original concern was going way back in that we didn't have a real check and balance as the bills were coming in and being approved. The bills would come in, we'd see it, and within 15 minutes or less, there'd be an approval. So that's when I basically said, I'm not gonna sign any warrants way back. And we basically said we wanna have someone else. I recommended David Menard, at least to have somebody with some skills in the area to look through it and check it off, which was done. So that took care of that issue there. I think the real problem is that Jerry and I both are accountants by trade. We look at things a little different because of how things get done by normal accounting practices. So when you see 12 soccer balls get put into, the capital expense account, soccer balls probably have a 1 or 2 year lifespan max, but we're gonna pay for them over 20 years, which means we're probably paying for about 40 balls by the time you get done with interest and everything else. So those are the things that I felt should have gone into some kind of operating expense. The problem is that MSBA has huge loopholes in this program, and everything they've done is fine. So I just want to make it very clear, we're not accusing, at least from my end, from the selectman side, the business manager, the new school superintendent, they inherited what in here. So they should basically get a free pass no matter what, because they had nothing to do with what we're talking about. The school committee and so, they follow the rules and regulations as given to them. If the thing is loose and easy to do with MSBA, so be it. It's just that there were certain things that we just kind of wondered, what are we doing here? Why are we putting like a computer program, a license that's good for 2 years and bonding it over 20 years? Those are the things that we had questions on. And that's all. I mean, they were poor accounting practices between Jerry and I, but is it okay to do? Yeah, ethically, I wouldn't do it if it was me. That's why I refused to sign some things.
Sometimes it's a burden being a CPA, huh?
Sometimes it's a burden asking questions, that's the problem. But I went through a lot of stuff in the last couple of weeks. I have no more issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
We need a motion, Bernie?
Yes,
Wanna make it, Joy?
motion to release the invoices for pay.
I move that we release the invoices that have been paid by the building committee.
Yes.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, can I ask the clerk to call the roll, please?
Tom?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jerry? Myself, yes. Norma?
Yes.
Bernie?
Yes.
But for the next school,
Motion
We'll do it differently.
Not mine.
Kevin, Matt, Kristen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your time in helping us solve this issue.
You're welcome.
Next item on our agenda is the Wareham Pollution Control Facility projection of cost for Swiss Beach and the processing plant upgrades. So if you'd like to step forward, please. And just to preface, I attended the meeting that the pollution control had at Swift's Beach. And initially, it started at as quite contentious. I think it went for, what, about 2 hours? 2.5 hours, really? 2.5 hours. Yeah, yeah. I had, I went outside at one point where,
Alternating.
and
So if you want to take an
people were
agenda and
leaving,
then
and so
paper
they were
clip
a more
behind it.
frustrated group, because they were leaving early. And so I was chatting with them and their viewpoint out there. And I also did some exploration of this system that they're referring to here, and they'll describe for us, and find that, and I talked with Guy also, but it's quite common, what they're putting in. And well, in fact, Louise's son-in-law has a system that's been in there some 20 years, and they got a 200-gallon tank in their basement, so it's, has been around for a while.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. My name is Sarah Greenberg. I'm with GHD, and
Mark Drainville with GHD.
so we work with Guy Campina, who you all know, of course. And today we wanted to come before you. You'll see I've handed out a packet that kind of looks like a PowerPoint. It was a PowerPoint, and then a handout, quick summary of the projects proposed, followed by a memorandum that was distributed to the Sewer Commission. And so with that, feel free to follow along in the agenda packet. I'll be talking through the PowerPoint. So today we'd like to come before you to talk about some projects that are proposed at the Water Pollution Control Facility for wastewater improvements. And they are threefold. They are, as the agenda indicates, 2 projects at the water pollution facility for upgrades, and 1 project, Swift's Beach, inflow and infiltration project. And so I'll go through the agenda, talk through, give some background of, why are we proposing these projects, what do they include, and why now? And we'll talk about the costs and the funding as well throughout this. So if you feel free to skip to the next page. And so the WPCF, the Water Pollution Control Facility, currently is has overcommitted flows, and as we all know, there's a sewer moratorium in effect on new connections or expanding your gallonage, your requested allotment of an existing connection. And so this is because the facility has a permitted discharge, and we cannot release any more into the river. Yeah.
are there any of the commitments that we've allowed unused yet? That they haven't, the construction hasn't got to the point where we even know what the flow is from those commitments?
So the committed flows are allotted in quantitative, in a quantity, and I can, of course, let Guy and add on to that, but they've been committed in terms of an amount of volume of flow to your, gallons have been allotted, yes. They are not all being actualized, being received at the facility. So, however, we have to account for them because
How much are they?
So if you flip one more page, please, thank you, great question, no, great leading question, I love it. So the reason we're talking about overcommitted flows is because when your flows exceed 80% of the permitted allotment, this triggers requiring submitting a plan to the state of how are you gonna deal with your proposed future plans of flows. And so you can see we've written out what the committed flows are, and that's 0.25 million gallons per day. And and plus the average annual flow that the facility received of 1.03 million gallons per day, you can see that that's a total of 1.28 million gallons per day. And that is just above the 80% of the permitted flows at 1.25 million gallons per day. So it's that what we're actually seeing at the facility plus anything that's been committed to connections, even if we're not seeing it, has triggered that threshold. And so we're now in a state of a sewer moratorium because, of course, at any point those committed flows could be seen, and we don't want to overcommit or continue to overcommit. And so that's why we're at the sewer moratorium state.
That's one quick question, it's kind of a little bit off subject. I understand the commitment and what we're getting every day there. With all this heavy rain we've just had, what did that do to the flow there? Did that push us over? You know what I'm saying, with infiltration and all that stuff and sump pumps, I mean,
It does. We get an average of 100,000 gallons per day per inch of rain. So when we
Okay.
see an inch of rain, we see 100,000 gallons.
Okay.
So
So that's over and above what you normally get, okay. So it pretty much pushes you over what your allotted amount is.
So it,
Yes, because in theory, there's a design factor for infiltration
Yeah.
and inflow, very small number. When you start having breakdown in integrity of a system, and that number goes into excessive, then it takes away the capacity of the pipe plant, et cetera, et cetera. So the number's in excess. Every plant has a specific amount of equalizing up front for normal, and that's usually designed for peak flows, because you have to plan, even though it doesn't happen, you have to plan on everybody flushing and showering at the exact same time. So that's why you have equalizing. In the event that happens, then you can accommodate it. Above and beyond that, there's really not a whole lot of accommodation. We've built 2 other equalizing basins to accommodate the successive flow, because at one point in time, we were putting it on the ground, which we couldn't do, so it just creates a whole plethora of problems.
So those reservoirs, the reservoirs you've done in the last 2 years are now operational?
3/4 full at the moment.
Yes, they are, yeah.
Great.
the only thing that I'll add is on that topic, in a wetter time frame, you could be closer to this threshold where you have to, submit a planning document to the federal government. So we've been in obviously a very dry period this year. I forget if last year was dry still.
It was a little bit, not as bad. It's
Not as bad,
Not as,
but
not as
still.
dry.
There were a few, I forget, a couple of years ago, I think it was right before the pandemic, I believe we were near 80% with just the flows going to the facility. So, and that doesn't include what you're committed, the committed flows too, so.
You never want that next level of government stepping in.
You don't. Well, so
I'll
the
leave it
point,
at that.
the point of this is to try and be proactive. That's
Yeah,
part of what we're trying
no,
to do.
I've seen all this twice already.
Okay.
Great. Good. So that brings us to the sewer moratorium and the fact that we are looking at these, as Mark mentioned, these projects that are proactively going to address some condition and capacity issues in the wastewater system. So you see the 3 priority projects listed out, Swift Speech, inflow and infiltration, and then 2 projects at the wastewater facility, headworks upgrades, as well as clarifier replacement. So if you flip to the priority projects on the next page, let's start off with the treatment facility. So there's some photos that you can see in the image down below, and the 2 on the left are showing you equipment that's located in the headworks. So this is the preliminary treatment of the facility. All the wastewater is going to come in, and the first treatment process it hits is the screenings that are taking out your rags and that kind of debris, and then it goes through grit removal, which is going to take out all your sand and sediment, and this is critical to remove, of course, because you don't want the rags and the grit, getting downstream, harming pumps and causing more damage to the process downstream. And so and so this, the images here kind of illustrate that there's a condition upgrade needed. The screens have started to become problematic, and we're finding rags downstream and grit. So the preliminary treatment is in need of an upgrade. So we're considering this a condition, as what we call a condition upgrade. And then as the water continues down, it goes through a secondary treatment process where we're removing our nutrients, and then also to the secondary clarifier, which brings us to the next project, which is same page, apologies. And if you look at the photo in the far right, that's an image of the existing secondary clarifier, which is, there to allow all your sludge to settle and be removed, so that as you continue down the process to denitrification filters and to UV disinfection in the river, you have a cleaner effluent continuing down. And so what's happening is the clarifiers that are there, to current design standards, are not appropriately designed. When they were originally designed back in the day, design standards change, and so the depth of these clarifiers now is too short, and you run the risk of having issues with settling and issues in your secondary clarifier. And you can see this photo on the right has shown not just failure because of the depth, but a piece of the equipment that skims the scum off the top broke down, and so we weren't able to remove scum from the top. So you can see that there's a condition need here as well. And so, for example, in some of the warmer months, we've noticed trouble with settling, whether it's the depth of these clarifiers, replacing them with one properly designed to a deeper depth to account for all the treatment flows will allow for proper settling and not allowing any problems with solids continuing down to stages that they shouldn't continue down to, so to speak. So, so this is a condition and a capacity upgrade because, the new clarifier would be designed to the right depth, but be able to handle the flow that the existing ones can, and so we can use those as a redundancy. So now you have backup if things, if you need more than just that new clarifier, you need to take it down for maintenance and stuff. So it would allow for a capacity in that regard. Flip to the next priority projects, and you can see here, yeah.
This picture down at the bottom, where's
Yes.
that?
Which one? The one on the far right or the very bottom?
Very bottom.
Oh, it's a beautiful seascape. I don't know where the drone got it from. It's off the coast. Why? You don't recognize the angle?
I was just trying to
It
figure
is
out.
Yes, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
It's the west end of the canal.
This is Riz House.
Yeah.
Is it the west end of the canal?
I would have to look into that. I will get back to you on that. Yeah, that's a good question. I know it's of Wareham, but I didn't ask where we got the drone footage
I
from.
was just
Yeah.
wondering when we have the outflow going into the
Yeah,
canal.
I think
It's all
so.
gonna go.
Yeah, I'll have to find.
That's a good picture.
And the next priority projects is the Swifts Beach inflow and infiltration project. And so there was a beta group, another engineering firm. They prepared an evaluation report to indicate what areas in the town would be the highest priority to address infiltration. And as you all are aware, part of the project has been started and to replace the gravity system with, all the pipes that are leaking, allowing infiltration, especially in that tidal area where you have the groundwater fluxing, to replace that with a low-pressure system, closed pipe system, and that will reduce the infiltration. And this is to continue to do the entire area, and this will allow, and this will reduce infiltration, freeing up capacity. So a capacity upgrade to sort of more immediately address some of the concerns with having a moratorium and getting close to our 80%.
Is 100% of Swiss Beach sewered?
Yes, yep. So currently, and I don't know how much is in this project, how many parcels were being done in this first stage, and the next stage is proposing completing all of it, so approximately 850 parcels, so.
Excuse me, when you say limiting the infiltration, you might note that this current pipe is below water level. As a result, the pipe leaking into itself is taking on water.
Yeah, so, yeah, right, and the tidal changes at certain points in high tide, it's underwater, yeah. And so if there's leaks in it, water can be coming in from the groundwater surrounding it. Is that what you're
Yes,
getting at?
because the
Yeah,
pipe
so-
itself is nothing but a series of joints. It's not one long pipe.
Right, exactly, yes, right. So at those joints, you're gonna have points of failure over time and leaks and such, so absolutely, and that's where it's gonna come in, yeah.
Is that the area that they epoxy?
Yes.
I don't,
Yes, we tried, yes, one Kinko which failed. Just for a couple of reasons, but yes, we epoxied, that's one of the areas. The other area we epoxied, upper part of Swiss Beach, is in place, still working through the marsh all the way to now. Pump station, that was a very successful project. Down the lower end by one Kinko, because of the depth and sump pumps, that particular project, I believe it was like, I wanna say 800 feet, I'm not so sure, I don't have the exact number, but that failed.
Is there a technology out there where you can put a pipe within a pipe?
It's
You
called
can run
slip
a
wire.
plastic pipe? I mean, you're doing with the epoxy, it's the same thing, but
It's
can it
called
just be
slip wire.
run a pipe in there?
So here's the catch, there's plenty of technology. There's one thing that we have to be concerned about, is it's an asbestos pipe. So we can't break it, we can't, if we're pulling a pipe through, we gotta make sure we don't damage it, because it gets very critical, the DEP will flip out. So we try to stay away, that's why we tried the CIPP, because we wouldn't have any chance of hurting the pipe. Slip lining is pulling, and you run the risk of damaging the pipe. You have to pull a pipe within a pipe, and so you run that damage. There's also pipe bursting, I could break that pipe away if it was any other material, put a new pipe. But because of asbestos, I can't do that. So with asbestos pipe, it limits what you can really do because it's there. And I would have to dig every bit of it out and replace it, which is quite costly. Just
Yeah.
the disposal of asbestos would be quite costly.
Right.
So, yeah, so we looked at all the technologies, all the different things that were available to address this specific problem in all of Swiss Beach, and this is the best solution because of the limitations we have in the pipe and water.
Dominic, you have a question?
I do. For you guys, the guy. This project is those sump pumps and to do all that stuff, correct?
Grind pumps, yes.
Okay. Was this something we should have been aware of before we tried to epoxy those pipes? Or did we just rush the gun on that?
You were aware of it, I forget, I want to say 2014 we talked about this particular technology.
No, I understand that. I'm talking about before we epoxied. Should we have been aware? Did we waste the money? Was it something we took a chance at? Or did we just rush the gun, epoxy them, and it failed?
No, there were some circumstances outside of our control that we didn't anticipate. If I was to do that particular thing again, we'd do it all differently. But yeah, I think it failed because of the circumstances that no one
I understand
anticipated.
the sump pumps and the water
We just-
ruined it, yeah, I understand
just
that.
thought we didn't-
And that just wasn't something that at the
No.
time we didn't think about or
No.
weren't aware that it would happen.
We knew that the potential, but they told everybody to put their sump pumps on. And you know how that goes. We tried to say, okay, this is a potential, let's address it. But we certainly didn't think that everyone would run their sump pumps. We just, you're right, it should be addressed. Yeah, maybe we say, no, we know they're gonna run it, so we should approach it differently. We
The
just,
bottom line on that, John, is if we were to do it again, we would just shut down all the power to Swiss Beach.
There you go. I was just wondering what, and I agree with you 100%. I was just, because it did cost us quite a bit of money that was actually
But the process
was
itself
wasted, yeah.
that we did throughout for the whole thing, with the exception of this section here we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
worked well.
Right, I know that, yeah.
So-
And it's a great
It's
system,
kind of
like
like
I said,
getting
I just didn't know if we should have been more aware, that's
Yeah,
all,
we should
just a
shut the
question.
power off.
Yeah,
Thank you.
interesting, but not shutting the power off. How do I go forward there?
So let's get into the important stuff, the cost. So on the next slide, you'll see order of magnitude costs laid out here for the projects that have been presented. And Swift's Beach and the two projects and the treatment plant upgrade projects is order of magnitude $60 million. And so this is not insignificant amount of money. And so and this is why we're coming at this time. It's so critical to pursue these projects because the state has a Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan program, low interest loans, 0 to 2%. loans, and the reason there's a range is it depends on how much of your project or which pieces of your project are directly nutrient removal related. So if it's directly nutrient removal related, you get down to the 0%, and the program will put the parameters in place to create an average. So it's not just 0 or 2. There'll be sort of a mixture of that depending on the pieces. And on top of that, this program is called the SRF program, and they also offer principal loan forgiveness to, thank you, Mark. Let's flip to the next page. So you can see, as I'm talking through the funding, the program provides principal loan forgiveness based on tier communities. So it's called Massachusetts Disadvantaged Communities, and they have tiers, and they assign based on average annual income of the towns. They provide tiers for it. And so Wareham in 2022 is a tier 3 community, which allots or affords Wareham the ability to have 9.9% principal loan forgiveness on that loan. And then on top of it, the icing on the cake, if you will, is that this year we have a unique opportunity because the monies from the recently passed infrastructure bill have assigned more monies to be allotted for this project for loan forgiveness, for principal loan forgiveness, that is. And so while we don't know the exact percentage on top of that 9.9% that this will be, it's going to be, additional on top of that 9.9%. So it's a lot of money that we haven't seen assigned for these infrastructure projects in a long time. And of course, there's always grants. I always like to keep grants on this list because there are always grants to be pursuing to help with some of the funding aspects. And then if you flip to the next page, yeah.
That's a question about the grants. Who finds those grants?
It depends. We find those grants. We've been, a guy finds those grants. We all find those grants. But
Yeah, I mean, the WPCF has benefited from a number of grants over the years. The lagoons or the
Yep.
EQ basins, I think they have benefited from near 50% grants, I think.
We have, and the resiliency through coastal zone management, all the resiliency programs are put together in engineering and designing, and also a bypass in 3 major pump stations. That's all grant money.
Yeah.
And you just pay attention, because we get bulletins from DEP, EPA, the governor's office. They just keep flying. We get them from the selectman's office. They'll say, hey, here's a grant here. You guys aware of this one? So everybody feeds us, and so we just pursue it and see what the viability of that particular grant is and how we got to fit into the parameters.
Excuse me, but do you have a grant writer? Do you
They have,
do it in-house?
on their team, they have someone that writes all the grants.
We do it in turn.
We do those for a while.
They write them all, they write all the grants. You would want me to write a grant.
And so if you flip to the funding page, we put in a table that illustrates the discussion of this loan, right? $60 million, order of magnitude cost, and what does that equate to when you're looking at loan amounts depending on the funding aspect. So and this just illustrates at a 0%, a 2%, both under SRF, or 5% hypothetically on an open market loan. And of course, as you can see, that the cost of the loan is, of course, at 0% going to be just the cost of the loan, but we're looking at up to, $30 million more for, depending on the kind of loan you're able to achieve. And then the next row down shows you with principal forgiveness. And this is just the principal forgiveness of the known 9.9%. And so you can see how we can sort of bring these funding amounts further down. And this is just a table to illustrate that for the loan funding portion, not to take into account any grants that can be put into place.
What is the time frame for all this?
What a great question.
Next page.
Do you mind flipping to the
How
next
would I
page? This is great. So, this proposed schedule here that's on the next page is based on the State Revolving Fund Program's schedule. So, in keeping with their schedule, in order to follow through, you first have to submit what's called a project evaluation form, and that is not a commitment of, not requesting or commitment of any monies, just to present the project. What are the details of the project? How does it fit into nutrient removal and what is the order of magnitude cost of that loan that would be asked for. And so that was due in mid-August and was submitted for these projects. And so then, in order to be able to get this loan, then the DEP will look at all of the applications for all these projects, and the ones that are approved are put on an IUP list in the spring. And you can see that in order to move forward, if you're on the IUP list, and you have to, at fall town meeting, appropriate design funds. So not the construction funds, design funds, the smaller piece design funds for the construction of these projects. So that then in the springtime, when you know you're on the IUP list, and then you can go before to get appropriation for the construction of these projects at Springtown meeting. And the reason that these are highlighted as critical is because this is the scheduling that is required by the program, because if you don't appropriate funds in the spring, you fall off of that list for that year, and you're no longer eligible for that IUP listing.
Mid-August, was that done?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
So do we have a sense of what the design fund amount would be for fall town meeting?
Yes, so a warrant article a draft warrant article was submitted, and it's up to $6 million, I believe, and I'll confirm that warrant language, and you can send that around, that warrant language. And that has been submitted for to be presented and moved on at fall town meeting.
Yeah,
And it's an
under
up to amount because the exact cost will come in.
It's under
yeah.
review now.
Great, yeah. And so, yeah, sorry.
So you say the town has to approve $6 million that we have to pay? The approved design fund, you said, is around $6 million?
Up to, yeah.
Okay, up to. Is that something that the town is gonna have to approve payment from the town? Or is it just, explain that to me a little more?
Is it part of the loan?
Yeah, is it part of the loan? Is it something we gotta come up with?
Right.
Design funds are not fundable through the state program.
Might be a grant.
If it isn't, the town's responsible, correct?
Town's
We gotta bond-
responsible,
We gotta bond
yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, payable through the fees.
The state requests that the towns commit funding for design, and then once the design is done, then they will fund the construction and any engineering that's required during construction.
It's no different than the schools.
No, I just want, I understand that we gotta bond it out, I'm just, through town meeting, it's gonna have to be a push issue. You got $6 million that you gotta bond out.
Yeah. This is something that will go to the sewer ratepayers. I think these, like, huh?
The
Yeah.
payments
Don't
on
tell me
the
that.
loans.
Don't say that.
Well, I thought that's what you were leading to.
Well, it
I mean,
says- Okay,
this
if
isn't
we-
a
that
town-wide.
was my second question. If we approve it
Yep.
at the town meeting, that amount's only gonna go to the sewer payers, correct, guy? Or correct, miss?
That's
And
correct.
that's only 50-something% of the town.
That's right.
But yet, you're gonna let the whole town vote on it. See, I got this big issue.
Required.
I got this big issue,
That's
guy,
a
you know
whole-
that.
That's a whole new.
I understand, but I got this big issue of how only 50-something% of the people are gonna pay for the whole town to benefit. And the whole town's gonna benefit from these 50-something% people paying for this, and yet they're not the only people voting for this. So I'm gonna let someone else vote to spend my money. It's gonna be that's something that's tough to swallow. Sorry, it's something that's tough
And
to
I
swallow.
understand exactly what Tom
Okay.
is saying. But the point is, if we don't pass this.
No, it needs to be passed, don't get me
Okay,
wrong,
okay,
Joe.
no, I
It
just
needs to be
put that out
passed.
there. No, I'm not.
But the sewer department has to,
The method of
for another
approving
day. So
any
it
borrowing
has to be done
is
differently.
required by law to come before a town meeting. They have to approve it. Any borrowing. How it's paid for is another issue. And you brought this up before, Dom, and I tend to agree with
I got a
you.
big issue with it
Yeah, I
all,
tend to
but it's
agree
for
with you
another day.
on one hand, and then-
Continue, miss, don't mind me.
But those have to.
Yeah, I got a real
read
bad
it.
taste in my mouth about this.
Okay,
You know, only some people pay.
No, I agree.
Okay, go ahead.
moving along, sir.
And I will add that even, just making sure there's not, no. I will add, so, you see at the bottom here for the beginning repayment of the loan debt apologies, doesn't start until 2026. And again, this is of the construction loan through the SRF program. So in terms of looking at your, debt and what's being allocated when, that wouldn't start repayment until 2026.
So what
And when-
happened, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
And when would we anticipate the projects being done? Is that
Yes.
the next question?
No, that's a good question, though. Notice, you see here that we've listed notice to proceed, which is when the project would, be under contract and be able to move forward, in June of 2024. And so I believe that I believe we've anticipated a 2-year construction project for this, yeah.
That's the
And I can get that.
earliest, that's
Right,
actually the
right,
earliest that
yes.
the repayment would start. It's likely to be probably at least another year beyond that. Sorry.
So hopefully, with the Swiss Beach project, we free up a little bit of capacity, a little bit of additional capacity, if
Mhm.
nothing else, by getting rid of the sump pumps.
Mhm.
Which then keeps us possibly from having to go to this next step with the state. Is that right? But the moratorium's gonna have to be in place for a while.
Moratorium's an unknown at this point, there's no relief at this point. And the other thing about Swiss Beach is the goal is to eliminate 2 pump stations. We already had a failure at one of the pump stations, Force Main, in the very beginning. It goes for another couple of miles, so that you know that that's compromised. So that's replacing that Force Main at a cost. And then the one coming out of the others, which is smaller. But so if we eliminate these 2 pump stations, that's a projected cost, maintenance cost, and cost of repairs to the station itself and the Force Main that we wouldn't have to do. So when you look at the big picture, just not just the capacity,
Right.
a lot else goes around it. Plus pollution, because we know if there's infiltrations, there's exfiltration.
Right.
Woodson wrote a great paper on that, so we have these pipes in waters, they're leaking, there's a bay issue. Because we talk about nutrients to the bay, so we spend money to try to treat it, but yet our pipes are putting it directly into the bay, so it's kind of counterproductive, so that's an issue, so we'll have to go also. So it's a bunch of things involved.
I think with this, with referencing the moratorium, doing the Swiss Beach isn't really going to change the moratorium or the need for it. It's just going to make that part of the system more reliable.
Yes,
Definitely.
And lower the flow somewhat.
yeah, hopefully,
Yes.
that's the idea.
What can we do with this sludge? Is there a market for that out there someplace? What's Milorganite?
Milorganite?
Milwaukee, that Milwaukee
It's
has.
fertilizer, it's
Yeah.
fertilizer. They do it in Boston also, at Nut Island.
Well,
So, yeah.
now it's costing us to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of course, sludge disposal options, and then putting into place the technology to create that fertilizer, et cetera. There's that cost too, of putting in place that technology because that's an extra level of cleaning up, if you will, the sludge versus just incineration. So there's challenges with that as well.
We're in
The
a,
biggest problem, Tom, and I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt you.
yeah, go ahead.
Because we're going through it now, we had a meeting with DEP today with the commissioner and the assistant commissioner. One of the biggest issues now is the forever chemicals that's in the sludge, because nobody wants it. Landfills are closing, incinerators are closing, there's only 2 incinerators all of New England. Landfills are closing all around us because of the liability of this forever chemical. And it's in the water, people spending money, communities are affected. So it's difficult in itself to get rid of. So if I say I can make a beneficial product, the question becomes is how do I remove that forever chemical out of that beneficial product so I can be allowed to apply it on land, et cetera, et
Send it to
cetera.
China.
They don't want
Find a
it.
buyer, yeah.
So that's the big
Put it in the
issue
ocean.
right now, in sludge disposal.
Oh, and
And the
you're-
costs have gone up 50, 60, 70% to get rid of it, and it's continuing to rise, and there's no end in sight.
When Deer Island came online, there was a facility in Quincy Shipyard that was processing the sludge into fertilizer. And they went bust because all you had to sue, there was human excrement. I don't want it in my
I don't
garden.
want to make that.
There's an aside, Barrington, Rhode Island used to do that back in the 80s. They used to produce that and give it away. And it was great for a while. I don't know whatever got stopped. I don't know why.
Do you have a question?
Depending on the process, it's now people see what's remaining in the sludge, like I said, like these forever chemicals. And so within recent years, you know, entities like Whole Foods have stopped allowing the use of sludge on products that are considered organic, and, you know, and so it's becoming more of it's a sticky issue. I'll also add that I think it's by the end of this year, EPA is supposed to render a decision on the status of these forever chemicals. They're known as PFAS, and a lot of people think they're going to consider it to be a hazardous material, which is going to be, it's an unsettled situation. So we have to wait for this situation to kind of settle down to see where things are heading. Because right now, others are asking the same question.
problem for it.
Well, others are asking the same question as you, and I'm afraid to kind of suggest something, because there's a big unknown that's about to maybe get settled soon, and then we'll have a better feel for it. There are processes that will destroy PFAS, this forever chemical, but they're expensive, and you won't want to invest the money unless you have to. So we're close to seeing that issue settle, but it's not settled yet. So.
Yeah. And so the last page just is a potential cost of no action, just to remind us all that there are still costs associated with not proceeding with upgrades. And, you know, it could be annual fines depending on what is brought down from the regulatory authorities. Of course, losing eligibility for the 0% financing because of inaction. And of course, then you still have to complete those projects. And you know, there can always be unknown legal fees or losing grant access, but I don't want to end on a negative note. I want to flip back to the page that lists all of the forgiveness, principal forgiveness. I'd like to end on the funding page where we talk about, we have opportunities for 0 to 2% low interest loan with principal forgiveness and these extra monies that have been newly for this year allocated for these projects. And so that's why we're moving forward this year to hopefully get these projects funded through a loan program. So we wanted to present this for you and see what questions you had. And yeah, thank you. And you have all these handouts, so.
Questions, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah.
Jerry?
Yeah, I think the only question I have is this on top, the Swiss Beach project, is it on top of what we just approved in the spring? That's in addition to?
You're asking all my questions.
I guess it'd be for Guy, or the headworks upgrade and clarifier, those two are, although they're listed separate, do you do those both at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll be in the same construction
Okay,
project.
and then do you also do Swift Speed at the same time? I mean, how many projects do you have going at the same time?
Two separate projects, as far
Yeah.
as two separate engineering groups. So as soon as if the money's allocated, we move forward, we'd probably do them simultaneously.
Yeah.
The difference would be whether there's some factors that may, influence one over the other. One can go in the winter, one maybe not be able to, but they would start, and then the finished problem may not be exactly, but we try to go with both of them.
Absolutely.
And that's a new clarifier, you said?
Yes.
So that the one you do have, does that need to be refurbished or anything to get it up to?
Yeah, one will fix the arm because we have to, but the others we'll put minimal number because they'll become redundancy. Right now, there's no redundancy at the facility, none. If a tank breaks or something happens, we're in serious trouble so this will give us redundancy. The new clarifiers will meet present loading capacities. They'll have baffles to address solids and all the things that we're seeing in today's world. So they should be fine. But if something were like maintenance, regular maintenance, then we'll have an option. Right now, we have no options. We can't maintain because I can't take anything offline. So how do you take a tank down to fix it when you can't take it offline? So that'll so we'll have those clarifiers to give us that option.
And to Guy's point, they won't be, it's not like they're going away, they'll still be able to be used.
Yeah.
It's not wasted, right, to have them there in place. It's
The backup generator.
exactly, yes, yeah.
Alan, did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me come up there.
You want the mic?
I'm good,
Okay.
sometimes.
No.
You're right, no. Okay. As a selectman, it's okay, I'll speak loud enough. We have the responsibility of giving the town administrator direction and guidance for the town overall. Bernie was at the capital planning meeting today, so he may or may not speak about it. We're in a situation where, what are we looking at realistically, $30, $40 million out of our own pocket for this project?
Indeed.
Number one. Number two, we got a little gift today from the school department. They need a new roof and they need a new boiler. You're looking at $11, $12 million, has to be done now. You're looking at the town hall being moved here to the Deacon School for money. You're looking at the police station being moved here. And the real elephant in the room is, we still need a second water pollution control facility, because we don't have any way of putting out, unless the EPA gives us, say, another 500,000 gallons a day. We're gonna stay with this moratorium, and we're gonna basically stop all economic development of the town of Wareham. And even if we were able today to have funding to build a new plant, it's 3 or 4 years before it's ready. You're gonna wait 3 or 4 years and stop everything? We're, excuse my language, screwed. I don't know about you, but I can't tell, I don't wanna go before a town meeting or to tell the residents that they have $50, $60 million in borrowing that we have to do, and you have to pay for it. This is not a joke anymore, people. This $30, $40 million, it sounds like, whatever. We have too many things going on, and we don't have any control now.
Indeed.
So I don't know how you guys, as the finance committee, are gonna deal with this, but we have some serious issues to decide how we move forward. And probably, to me, the most critical thing is, what are we doing about a second water pollution control facility if we can't expend any more stuff out into the river?
Is that a definite now?
The only project that we had that was available, the guy, and even I, way back with the coalition, was 7, 8 years ago, Guy?
You started the project, yeah.
We started, I mean, that's how long we've been, excuse my language, dicking around with this whole thing. Of basically
Yeah, we had the meeting at Mass Maritime.
taking the maritime permit.
Yeah, no, is that dead?
Well, it's dead because as of last week, I've been after our Congressman Keating to get an earmark grant. I made a request for $142 million a while ago. That's what this project would cost. We've had no answers and no response, really. They asked the coalition to basically come back with some information. The coalition has not supplied the information. So what I've done is I've asked for a second grant from Keating for what's happening here for $60 million to see if we get some relief. There's no guarantee we get it. The money is there in Washington. There's a huge amount of money. Massachusetts has $5 billion that they're sitting on. They don't know how to handle it yet.
No,
The ARPA money has never been.
$5 billion.
$5 billion. And the state has not released the ARPA funds, and it's becoming a real problem overall. Because we're looking for those funds to be able to do stuff, and nothing's happening.
The other thing is, you have not solved the capacity issue.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. We haven't, no matter what we do with this $60 million project, we have, the real
What are you
problem
gonna
is.
do at Wareham at 60?
That's what I'm trying to bring out so everybody knows what you're dealing with here.
You got trains coming down here? I mean,
Maybe.
but there's gotta be some blue sky look at this whole thing and understand all the components. You can't take one at a time, or people are gonna just say,
No.
you punched me last month, you're gonna punch me this month with a different deal.
Tom, we don't have that option anymore because we've been hit with 2 or 3 things just today alone that we have no option time-wise.
There's talk behind the scenes now in trying to address this situation that Alan has mentioned, and trying to identify all of our needs and see if we can't come up with some kind of pathway to accomplish some of the things that are most critical and move them down. Because as Alan said, he went down a list, and I think he probably missed a couple,
Most likely.
Yeah.
and everything is critical.
I wish I wasn't sounding so negative, but, we got hit today right between the eyeballs. It came out of nowhere. I never, there was not one word said about the school having these issues.
But excuse me,
Go ahead.
can we get reimbursed on the schools?
Yeah, MSBA will give you some of it, but the problem is you still have to pay for it all up front yourself.
Okay.
And then the money comes back at the end of the projects. Remember, we did the Deacon School, and we did, I think, the roof and the boiler. Well, you're supposed to wait, I think it's 10 years? You have to keep using that building. Well, unfortunately, they gave up that building before the 10 years was up. So even though everybody forgets about it or doesn't know, they charged us back the $800,000 against the money coming from MSBA for the mine at school. Came right off the top.
Yeah, that reimbursement, we lost that.
We lost
But
all
we
of it.
didn't, they deducted it from our reimbursement that we got from the building the elementary
the new
school.
school. So,
MSBA has a way of doing that. The language is very specific.
No, I understand that, but with the new roof and the boiler, I know we gotta put it up front, but
we
it's an
might-
easier sell if it comes back.
We might-
Pound percentage of it comes back.
Out
It's
of
an
12 or
easier sell.
15 million, Dominic, we might get 60%. That's still 40% of that we have to come up with.
Right, right.
And we don't have a chance to spread it out, except to go and try to get a bond. Interest rates, if you are watching, has been going up 0.5 to 0.75% every other week now. So,
Wait till tomorrow, or when is it?
Next week.
you don't have to wait till tomorrow either. So all my suggestion is that the town administrator is gonna need assistance and help as well, because he's got an awful lot on his plate, and every department has critical issues now. And we can't pay for all of it.
Well, one way,
And you gotta look at Carver, Rochester, Mattapoisett, Marion. I mean, we gotta look at it as a regional
Yeah, but
issue.
what Carver did is Carver went out and borrowed money for elementary school, fire station, police station, et cetera. The guy who was the town administrator didn't last much longer after that, because they were so deeply in debt, they had to go for an override. We all know, if the word override comes from Wareham, you might as well go out the door, because it's not happening. I mean, that's the only other piece we have, and that's a permanent tax on the people. We have a lot of people that can't afford another nickel on their taxes, because we have a really mixed community. We have extremely wealthy people, and we have people below subsistence level. And there's certain people that are living, unemployment check and employment check, and every time you hit them with something, it's either food or medicine. So we really have to come up with something, that the town administrator can function with.
yeah, indeed. We're going a little aside here. Any other questions
Sorry,
regarding?
but I just thought it was important to get it out.
Couple things for the here and now. We, as stated, we did a couple articles last spring, the $3 million for the main, for the Narrows. Is that gonna be enough to cover that project now?
No.
Interest, supply costs, so $3 million, so you're gonna be looking for a little more money on top of that $3 million? I didn't want to ask, but.
The bids came in tremendous.
I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just.
No, materials came, his materials did not change. The bypass went out of sight. So it rocked because the components within the bypass, the cost of pumps and pipe and all that went out of sight. So that added 1.6 million to the deal.
So that 3 turned into 4.6.
4.6.
Is that the same thing in the Swiss Beach project?
No, that bid actually lower. It came in 2.4.
Well, I was gonna ask,
Already on that.
I know you did the line for the pipe down there, would that money came out of this $3 million?
No. The 3 million is for the, I think it's 115 grinder pumps in Swiss Beach to 3 million. And that came in at 2.4.
And just kind of the people that, I hate to bring this up now. You rates went up 15%. That covered the 2 articles basically from last year. Is that a safe statement to say?
It's a safe statement, because to be frank, I have to look at the actual hard numbers. But the increase was, I think $900,000 was the increase. So that's for debt service.
Yeah. And then 6 million for the design and stuff for now, you can almost expect the same amount in the very near future.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just want people to know, and I've told a lot of people, I'm on septic, so I don't have a dog in this fight right now. I mean, the ratepayers now gotta understand what's going on and how it's gonna impact them. Because I wouldn't wanna be the one to go in front of anybody in this town, the way things are going up with inflation and everything
You
else.
have a dog in the fight. The DEP sent a letter to the Board of Health, so you have a dog in the
Yeah,
fight.
I understand that.
Believe it or not,
Yeah,
because it's gonna affect every home in the town of Wareham, whether you're on sewer or septic, because something has to be done to address the nitrogen load.
I knew all that, but right now, dealing with what we're dealing with, I mean, it's.
I got pictures of the grinder pumps that you're gonna be installing, and I happened to look up, maybe you can get them cheaper on Amazon. Because they're all listed.
I'm sure they are,
Yeah,
Speaking of this, got cheaper?
How are the reviews?
The grinder pipes, and I understand the whole I&I thing. Why wouldn't you put those on new construction? I hate to add more to builders and stuff, but I
We have a
mean,
policy that if you build a new home
yeah,
in an area where the gravity pipe is below the water, you have to put a grinder pump. Yeah,
Okay.
construction, you can't do anything else.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, that's kind of why I was
Why
there.
wouldn't you put one in anyway? I mean, it lessens
the solid, yeah, that's-
the load on the pump station and all.
I gotta tell you, it's political, right? I don't mean politicians, I mean individual opinions, and they become strong, emotions become strong, I think we witnessed some of it. And so when you say grinder pumps, people start thinking of the worst case, everything's the worst case. Well, if the power goes out, well, we have 47, I believe there's 43 in town, and we have a generator and 2 cables we've never used since we put them in 2012, the last one went, we never used them. So I don't know if that's valid or not valid, I can't say, but we know we've never used them. So that's an issue, and people think of those things, and I don't want to dismiss their feelings or their opinions at all. But those are the kind of things, when you say, hey, grinder pumps, the pushback you get. Well, I like gravity because it costs me no money, because I can flush anything. I'm not restricted, I have less responsibility. I can continue to flick my baby wipes and my wipes and everything I want to flush. I don't have to be responsible, I mean, it goes on and on and on. So it's a fight, and everybody has their own opinion, and what's, what do you do? It's a battle.
Dominic?
Could you have charged the individual homeowners for the grinding pumps?
Could have. I just didn't think it was a good idea. I thought it would be best to do it.
Why didn't you think it was a good idea?
Well,
You're making half the people of the town pay for them. Don't get me started, guy. You're making half the people in the town paid for them, the other half aren't, and they're getting benefit. So why not charge it to the individual homeowner?
Something to consider then, I guess.
Question?
Tom?
The annual fine, how is that calculated?
The annual fine?
Yeah, so like if we do nothing.
Oh, that's a DEP. They calculate it themselves. You don't know what it's going to be.
So it can be anything,
Could
could be a dollar, could be
it
10 million.
anything. And the
Well, how
concept
much
is,
money they need that day?
the concept is you just don't want to go there because they have that right.
And if we do nothing, do we put ourselves in the situation that you're seeing in Jackson where they can't drink the water and they can't take showers and they can't do that? Are we putting ourselves in that type of jeopardy?
I would say that, here's what I'll say this year, we do nothing. So first of all, clarifiers aren't working at all, so we can't settle, because they can't take the flow. So I have an issue. This past month, we violated bacteria probably 12 times. We violated our nitrogen because we can't settle, the solids get into the denite filters. So if we do nothing, we don't have to do a thing. We just have to fight through the EPA, because when I submit my permit this month, my DMR, they're gonna question it, because there's a bunch of violations. And I don't know what they're gonna do. We're gonna address them, I'm gonna answer them and tell them why, what's going on. Sludge was a problem, we couldn't get rid of sludge, beyond our control. Temperature was a problem. While we had the temperatures, we had 6-7 days of 93 days, which makes it difficult to air. And while that's happening, we lost the blower. So I have to replace blowers. I got 3 blowers that are vintage 2005, all of them should be replaced. We looked at replacing those, that's $300,000. So, we don't have it in this project, but that has to be done. I'm looking to do it within my budget. So there's a lot of factors. So do nothing, yeah, that's always an option, to do absolutely nothing. Because we don't have to do a thing. No, we don't have to. One thing I told you have to do is pay taxes and die. And like that, if you have to pay taxes. We haven't figured that one out yet, but we don't have to pay taxes. We don't have to do nothing. But we think in the best interest of longevity and what we've invested so far in the town, what we invested into the system, it makes sense to do things. But again, there's no obligation to a thing.
And
Yeah, and I was thinking in terms of how it's presented.
Yeah, because it's real.
Right.
When we sat and talked about things, we don't say, hey, let's just do this. We know the headworks is gone. It's corroded. The fire, I have to, by law, put a brand-new fire system in that building. We just ordered it. And I'm petrified because the building is corroded. All the wiring is corroded. All the control panels are corroded. All the equipment's corroded. The building's corroded. The system that's supposed to exchange air is no longer. So, yeah, we can continue. You go in that, we can keep everything open because we've seen hydrogen sulfide as high as 100 ppm, which is, the EPA says, I believe it's 8, okay, is accepted for you to be in. We see 100 because the air exchange does not work. So, yeah, I mean, again, to what point? Maybe, we just keep going and the building falls, I don't know. But yes, we're not doing this because we choose to. We have to. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it.
Yeah, no, and I get that. And I just, like, I sell technology for a living, so it just needs to be explained in a way that people,
Yep.
I try to explain it to
And-
people
and
that can
people
understand it, because a lot of things that you
Yes.
just said went right over,
So if you
you know,
can
my.
help me with that, I'd love it, because to get the message out there, I may not be the best, because I'm thinking from my level and what I understand, and you may not. So maybe the help of getting it out there in layman's terms, when you say this needs to be replaced because it's no longer. We, in our world, we go with what we call life expectancy.
Yeah.
My dad had a great scenario, you get 80 summers, we all life expectancy 80 years. Some get more, but you get 80. That's your life expectancy. So enjoy those 80 years. The facilities enjoyed their 80 years. It may get another year. Narrows Force Main, it's well beyond its life expectancy. It may get some more time, because everything's different, but it's beyond that life expectancy. So do we continue to say, hey, I'm gonna defy the odds? I'm gonna be the one that goes beyond my life? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, you know, everything in that facility, in 2005, when it was up there, it's a brand new plant, it's gone. 2005 is quite a while ago.
Yeah.
It really is quite a while ago. It's actually 1999 technology, because they designed it, it took all the years to get it in line. So when we put things online in 2005, it was already antiquated, especially electronics. We go to replace it, we can't replace that, that's not even supported.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's where life expectancy, everything is gone. So now what do you pick and choose? We try to pick the highest priorities. And the Headworks is because we're getting throughout the plant, everything, you can see all the rags floating everywhere, inside the pumps, inside the tubes of the clarifiers, you can see the grit. So it's causing major harm, so it has to be addressed, and so that's why we're gonna address it.
Say, Guy,
And I think
how old is the building, or how old is the system itself?
2005, the new system, the upgrade went online. And I believe in 1999, I may be off, it could be 2000.
When was the original construction?
1972, I believe, was the original plant went online. And the original clarifiers are still 1972. So they're well beyond their life expectancy. But that's 1972. And then we had an upgrade in 1989, and then an upgrade in 2005, it went online. Design 1999, and construction went on. So it's old. Everything is old. It just isn't.
The warranty's
anymore.
expired,
You think so?
barely.
In Tom, I think, there's no doubt, Guy enjoys his work.
Yeah, he's pretty passionate about it.
He's good at it. The guy's very good at what he does. Everyone agrees to that. How he gets his money is a different story.
Yeah, I apologize, because that isn't my forte, and so I honestly apologize for that, because I look at the end of what needs to be done, and you guys put the decimals, and so I overlook decimals. I look at needs and long-term, and I apologize. I'm learning, I'm beginning to understand, but it's what are we going to do? I look at consequences.
Any other questions?
If I could add one
Certainly.
item, just so you know, there is some planning that's being done for the future. The town has started doing a comprehensive wastewater management plan, which is kind of the equivalent of like a master plan for a town that a town might do. And this comprehensive plan is going to be looking at some of the issues that you heard about, the need for additional treatment capacity, further needs at this existing facility, potentially looking to see if we could maybe increase the discharge to the river. So there's a number of things that are going to be looked at as part of this planning document. So there is, although some of the items that or some of the projects of late have been more reactive, of the reactive type, this is something that's going to look into the future to have a planning document looking forward. It would provide or afford the town the opportunity to kind of, look out quite a ways and to be able to plan for projects over periods of time, so.
Not be in this position.
Yeah, and Mark's being modest, because he met with the DEP over the groundwater discharge. We're talking about a plant and how to get it fast-tracked, dealing with the issues of ponds, et cetera, so he's actually got them involved in different divisions trying to get it done, because he knows the needs in Wareham are urgent. So he's fast-tracking, same thing with the EPA and DEP about the discharge to the river. He's fast-tracking that. So we're trying to go as fast as we can. There's limitations, but we're trying to fast-track as much as we can, because the issue is complex and critical. So I just want to say that he's being modest, but he's on the phone, at meetings, Zoom meetings, et cetera, just trying to handle the point of the needs of the town of Wareham. We're trying, so I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. He's up and he's doing it.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah and Mark.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for our good news.
And Guy, are you still running the cooker or the barbecue down there for order control?
No, I got the accountants flipping out because she says, well, let me buy a cooker. It's not, I'm not. I gotta build one. I gotta get some block and build one. Gosh, I couldn't get the last one paid.
Well, that's too bad because.
The pig roast will take place next month.
I was hoping you were still running it because if we could arrange for a tour, you could
Oh, right.
barbecue for
You
it.
could, yeah, I could.
That's the next item, yeah.
It's exceptional. This is not original. They're using this in different plants throughout the state. And I talked to DEP about this. It's highly effective. I bought one and I couldn't buy any more, but I'm looking to build one. Because if you think about summer and smoke just permeates neighborhoods, campfires, barbecues, it just permeates neighborhoods. And so it's a good odor control, but it's gonna be big enough and so I have to build a pretty big cooker. But I'm pursuing it because it works. It's inexpensive compared to the million you have to spend on regular odor control. It works and it's simple, and the guys will probably enjoy the barbecue, so it's a lot of fun.
Could we talk about a tour perhaps?
Sure.
We have at least 4 people who've never been on one.
So Mondays are bad, Saturdays are great, I'll do pretty much any time. Afternoons are exceptional. You guys get together, give me 2 times or give me a couple, and we'll meet it.
I think, Tom, you and Julie are still working days for the most part, are you not?
Okay?
So we might do Saturday.
I can do Saturday.
You would mind? Wouldn't
I
mind doing
know.
it? Okay,
meet
let me
you
get
all
everybody
Saturday.
together and, on a particular day, and I'll let you know if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
absolutely, absolutely.
appreciate it.
And Saturday better because there's no construction. During the week, construction's going on, and there's a lot of safety rules and regulations, so you can't see it all. On Saturdays, no construction, we can go into the construction area and things, and we can see more if you're gonna say than we could on a weekday.
Where do you get all those wood chips? You got an enormous wood chip.
I'm done taking them. I made a deal years ago.
I guess I don't know what he means by
It's
into.
crazy. We used to get rid of them. There's a market, there's no more market, but N-Star was going to do a program where they were gonna clean lines for power. And they needed a place to go with the chips. So they said, hey, listen, if we had a place, you can bring it here. So my goal was if they could bring it here, then they would get more service and getting our lines in the town cleared because it's a short haul. And it worked for quite a while, but now and I think that whatever projects they do, we say bring it in, but we're pretty much full now. 'Cause
Yes.
I have no, there's a company, NER in Taunton, used to take them, and they used to take them to Canada. There's a huge market for it. That's dried up. We're
Because
hoping
you're
it
gonna
comes
need that
back.
property for another tank.
Bernie,
Yes, Tom.
Guy, can the general public speak at the meetings, about finances and stuff
At the last, not our next meeting, which is tomorrow, but the following meeting,
when's the date on
2
that?
weeks.
2 weeks from tomorrow?
Right.
So it's 2 weeks from the 15th.
Yeah, but we don't consider you general public, just so you know. Just so you
You
know.
don't know any considers you don't. I know, you pain in the ass.
I just have these ideas of how you guys can make more money, but nobody wants to listen to me.
I would, Dominic, one of the biggest problems we have, and it's countrywide, is staff. I can't do half the things I'd like to do because I don't have staff. And the staff you have don't want to do, they're not like they used to be. And I don't mean that to degrade anyone, it's just reality.
I understand.
So
I get you.
ideas, when we talk about ideas, we have to staff it, and we don't staff. And that's a major, countrywide, in all industries, it's a
No, I
problem.
understand that, but you're looking at a decent amount of money
Yes.
that's there for the taking.
Yeah, well, then let's take
It's
it.
there for the taking. And I brought it up though for a couple of years, and
Bring it up,
it's
absolutely.
nowhere.
Let's look at it.
Okay, all right.
Because I believe in
As I say,
PPP.
I already had a request to somebody to come to this meeting, and I turned them down because we've got some other things to take care of.
The 15th, I'll be there. Whether they want to hear from you or not.
No,
Thank you, Jim, Guy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Guys,
much.
doing a good job, I know that.
I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
You know what,
Thank
I
so much.
told everybody before, the growth of the town relies on it. The sewer department's dead, we're dead. That's
I could do the first.
the most important thing in the town as far as I'm concerned.
Either text me or email me, so.
Doing a very nice
Well,
work.
we're making small talk here.
Crazy times.
Well, we did the tour of the
We'll get there.
sewer treatment plant, we did the police station too. I think that's a great tour. If nobody's ever been through that police station, you can see how
Thanks.
bad that is. I mean, it really is, yeah. And I gotta tell you, we did 3 different facilities. And at that time, I said, the water sewer plant, and this was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. I said, they need $100 million now. I said, this is a mess.
The next item on our agenda is to review the fall warrant as I currently know it. Hey, David.
See you, Dave.
Good to see you again.
We are still in the discussion stage of some of the issues that don't appear here. They're discussing some this afternoon, and I'll ask Jerry to give us an update on the capital planning meeting that was before this afternoon, before we go through these particular articles. Since they were articles they were discussing this afternoon.
Yeah, the guy was there this afternoon, so what you just heard now is what he gave us this afternoon. So those are, that I believe will end up being 3 separate warrant articles, plus there's going to be one that's for $3 million that's going to be taken away and made up to $5 million because the cost came in a little higher. So that would be 5 warrant articles that would come here after their warrant articles like it usually does, and we would review them.
Yeah, but can I just on all guys' projects, so
Yes.
you're only doing one for the fall town meeting. Is that correct?
No,
No.
I thought they were gonna do all, to get the
No, no.
planning done.
they broke them all out.
That's the planning. That's $2 million planning article.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And then a subtract on.
Yep. No, I got it now, yeah.
Yeah, and that's,
Then
There's 3 twos there,
Then
basically.
I believe, okay, the school will come in with 2, one for a boiler and one for a middle school roof. And then there'll be some other articles related to the multi-service center. The plan being do Deacon's, move from here to Deacon's, then do here. So there'll maybe an article or 2 regarding the preliminary stuff or stuff that needs to be done at Deacon's. And then there's some other minor stuff for and this is for the fall 22 capital plan. Now, the other stuff, Tom, with you in mind, I'm getting so much detail. Rather than then coming over, but I will be able to give you all the detail you need. Like I believe there's replacement of 3 trucks. All these trucks are 2005 models. They're all fully depreciated on the books, and none of the 3 will pass inspection. So they're junk. Now, for example, you probably don't want any more than that, except now who's going to use the new three? And that's, so we'll get the detail on that, but I need to see a warrant article first.
And is this the first time they've appeared on the capital plan?
I believe this is the first time that they will go on a warrant for the
But,
fall
I
town
mean,
meeting.
we see the capital plan out 5 years. Is this the
Yeah.
first time they're on there?
No,
No.
no. But I believe,
I mean, this whole
There's a-
problem is that we're doing everything sort of on fire.
I believe there's a capital plan, Tom.
There's no reason
And then
why we
there's
can't
portions
be-
of the capital plan that are actually made into a warrant. Okay? So I'm just talking about stuff that gets to be a warrant that we have to express an opinion on. But the stuff that doesn't get to be a warrant, yeah, right, there's a 5-year capital plan with a lot of money on it.
I think, Tom, what you would see to satisfy what I think is your requirement, is every one of our pieces of equipment should show up on the capital plan and give us a life expectancy.
Yeah,
As to
I
when
mean,
it's gonna be cycled up for replacement theoretically on, based
this
on
whole
that.
sewage treatment thing is an issue that we should know what our next 10 years are gonna look like.
It should, and it's something we're gonna be working on. There's a few of us that are trying to get some organization to these things. Not that it's gonna make it any cheaper.
No, I'm
but
not.
at least in an orderly fashion,
Just-
you're gonna approach it. As
Just
the,
doesn't
they were
get
talking about-
blindsided all the
Yes,
time.
how to finance is what.
Yeah, historically speaking, towns and cities don't do that. They don't,
No,
they
it's
don't.
not historically, Tom, it's traditional.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean, like, they don't do that, like a business would do that, right? But towns typically don't. And that's a big issue. There's a big balance sheet issues with like benefits and stuff having to go on to books now that weren't on them before. So it's a big issue. I agree with you. We should do it. It doesn't make any sense
Matt,
if we
you want
don't.
In all fairness, with the sewer department too, we knew that the force main going down the Narrows needed to be replaced 7 years ago. We knew that. We had the reports in our hands. Same thing with Wankinko. We knew it. We had the reports in our hands. And we were presented with those last year, actually this spring. Okay.
And they're playing catch-up. I think that was about the time frame the sewer commissioners were formed. And that was one of the reasons for doing that. The selectmen couldn't take the time to do all that was necessary and pay attention to it. So they created the sewer commissioners. Now, the sewer commissioners, in their defense, had to play catch-up on everything. Not to mention, and I refer to this, we have 38 committees, all staffed by amateurs, volunteers.
Not necessarily amateurs,
Right,
but
volunteers. It's difficult to find people who are knowledgeable in any particular area that a government deals with. I mean, there were, when we went to the Swiss Beach Association meeting with the guy and Jim, and there were people there, and one individual stepped up and said, "Oh, this is not gonna work, and what do you do for a living?" "I work for the Boston Sewer. I'm at Deer Island." And, well, it's a little larger than we're working with here, but he suddenly knew a lot about certain things, and his negativity was not helping. And of course, there was only guy there that had any background, so to speak, as well as the consultants. But the group in general, the 5, 6 members, didn't have that kind of background that guy was talking to. So it's difficult to address an audience and say, "I know what's going on." You don't. But you're doing the best you can.
They had more of an idea that the Swift Beach way down in the Wankinko area would fail.
Oh, indeed.
They did. They were on a wing and a prayer that it was gonna work down there. And I had heard odds that, it was like 20-30% it might work, There was people who talked about it that
This is
before
on the
they spent
epoxy?
the money.
This is on the epoxy stuff?
Yeah, because what happened was the epoxy didn't dry before water went through, and it made like a mohawk.
Pressure
pipe.
Creates a bubble.
And
Right,
up where it was the higher locations, it works great, but they had more of an idea that it was gonna fail, and they got the money, let's do it, let's try it, rather than look into it a little more. That's just my opinion.
If it worked, it would have been a miracle for Godson for us, but,
Yeah.
as you point out.
They had nothing to lose.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, this is a business. We're running this as a separate business, a water pollution control
we're
facility.
entrepreneurs, volunteer entrepreneurs.
They put a Band-Aid on a project they knew
I'm making
needed to be
anyway, right.
And we've gotta have a 5 to
It's
10
when
year
it comes
plan,
out.
just like we need a 5-year, 10-year plan on our.
Because I know the guy who does the work, the epoxy company.
We keep slapping Band-Aids on everything.
Well, and yet, we're deferring all of this maintenance, and you just can't kick down the road like this.
No.
It's always gonna be a disaster. If
No,
you
we
don't
need to find a way
replace
to-
your water heater when you need to, you're gonna flood your basement,
Okay.
And you're 100% right there.
Let's go on to the warrant if we could, please. The articles, the numbers haven't been given to them yet, but the approval of capital plan, that's part of what Jerry's updating us on, as well as, you usually have a basic one, that'll be the basic equipment, trucks and whatever, and then there'll be other ones to be more specific, as they've outlined this evening, as far as the sewer. And there's a transfer of free cash, we'll have that per our bills. PEG access, that's one we do every town meeting, because we have to transfer the receipts from Xfinity and Comcast and Verizon, to over to the WCTV. Union contracts, I think there were one or two that hadn't been settled as of our last town meeting, and they'll probably come. The occasional reports, is an issue. I was talking with the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and I was suggesting and contemplating working one. We have an article that says the occasional report, but there's no requirement that any committee provides a report to town meeting. As an example, the building of the Wareham Elementary, to clear up some of those issues that we had in terms of the invoices, I reached out to Jeff Swit, who was the chairman of it. And he says, I don't know. We haven't met since last November. Committee's dissolved. What do you mean it's dissolved? Oh, yeah, we're not doing anything. No, wait a minute. We're spending $84 million and you just walk away. Oh, okay. So my gut feeling is any appropriation by town meeting over 100 grand, whoever it's appropriated to, whatever committee formed by either the moderator, which is part of the charter, or the selectmen, has to report to town meeting how they spent the 100 grand. Could be just a one-liner or whatever, but at least we have some kind of audit. We're appropriating money. Tell us how you spent it. Is it good?
So it's basically a final report kind of thing.
Yes. And on
Not
this final,
necessarily final. I mean, I would think that
Well,
you do a series of updates.
indeed, because all these invoices, they never went through the committee. I was on the committee, David Hurd was on the committee. Other than the contract or construction invoices from Beacon, these purchases never went before the committee, because they walked away.
Yeah, but in the defense of that, the two people who could spend the money had permission to spend it.
The only one,
Bernard and Swift had the right to spend the money.
the only entity that had the legal right to spend the money was the money appropriated to the committee by MSBA under their contract, who had the, Jeff Swift was the chairman. He reported to the chief executive officer, and that was clearly spelled out by MSBA. He did not have, no, I don't think the selectmen had the authority, Alan. Is that why you're raising your hand?
No, but neither did your
We
committee.
have the last step there.
The warrant, you signed the last warrant.
If we don't
Yeah.
sign it, nobody gets paid.
Right.
So at the end of the day, if the shit hits the fan, we're responsible. That's why it was, that's why
Yeah,
I was
but there was
concerned.
no review process for that outside, and the school department didn't have any authority to spend it. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there, really. But, I mean, that was the issue I had. I think there's some projects by the sewer that has been completed, and there's some monies left there. They have to cancel that so they can go back into their retained earnings. Tremont Nail, that's for paying, to make the payment on the, from CPC, or the loan that we had for there. Community preservation, they do the traditional adjustment of their funds as required by statute. The Little Harbor Country Club, again, that's from CPC monies for make the payment on the borrowing. Harbor Services receipts, that's so he can transfer and purchase the outboard motors. And same thing with the onset, the floating docks would be CPC's paying the borrowing. And let's see, the other repairs, repair and maintenance, repairing their receipts into that department. Amendment to the waterways, there's gonna be possibly, no, I think Gary has written it. There's one, the harbor master has rewritten an extensive piece of bylaw or zoning, and it's some 30-plus pages, but he said it needed to be done, so that's one of the issues we have.
Excuse me, Billy, can I correct you real
Sure.
quick? You had said on the onset floating dock, CPC was gonna, no, that's all coming out of harbor, his receipts for the mooring. CPC's got nothing to do with that.
I just have a recollection in my mind.
CPC just approved the mats.
Right, that had nothing to do with the floating
I haven't
docks.
seen the whole body of it, so I'm making an
Okay,
assumption.
I'm pretty sure he has plenty of money in his receipts,
Yeah.
so he's paying for all that stuff.
But I think, wasn't there a piece of that CPC?
Not to my knowledge, you could be
Okay.
right, but not to my
And
knowledge,
you're
doesn't
right,
matter.
we could both be wrong.
We'll know it when we see it.
And the restated agreement for the CMW, that's basically for the retirees that used to run the facility. And an amendment for zoning amendment, of course. There's a zoning bylaw for the social consumption of establishments. That's been a change in that law itself. The zoning bylaws for signs, that's just a brief paragraph that I've seen. And there's an anticipation of at least possibly two petition articles.
The zoning articles I actually submitted, Ken, I think, is putting it under the Board of Selectmen. One of them is, for some reason, the sign bylaw was basically rewritten per se by cleaning it up again. They left off the 25% window coverage.
Ah, yes.
And the reason for that is that if any of the first responders have to go into any business whatsoever and you can't see into the building, it's a serious issue, whether it's robbery, fire, medical emergency. So I added that back in. Ken will submit that. And the other piece was the social consumption was approved by the state Cannabis Control Commission. The details of how that's going to work has not been finalized. So what we're doing is we're asking for town meeting to vote for a one-year moratorium on social consumption. All the rules and regulations are figured out, and then we will figure out how we're going to handle it.
Anything? Any questions?
Would you say maybe two petitioned
Do you know
articles?
what the petition articles will be?
No, I don't, because they are petitioned, they're out there
You don't
collecting
have no
signatures.
buzz about
No,
what they might be?
it's just a guess. Some individuals have been very outspoken on particular issues, and they've commented that they may do that. They may or may not.
There's always two or three anyway.
Yeah. And
We'll see when we cross them.
any other questions regarding that issue? Any questions? As soon as I get the bodies of the articles, I'll certainly copy everyone. Our calendar will remain pretty much as I've sent out, unless otherwise notified. I would suggest planning on every Wednesday meeting. The warrant's gonna close soon, and so then we're gonna be,
It's every Wednesday from now on.
yes,
9/21,
The meeting?
it's the next one.
yeah. If not, I'll let you know. I've asked Norma to take care of her, putting the amendment together, the agenda together. I get a draft Monday.
That wasn't Monday. It was-
Oh, yes, it was Monday, and I'm looking at it and I thought, oh my God, I never even thought about it. I don't think about it till lunch on Thursday, which is way ahead of me. But we'll know, by that time, we'll know, so you'll get notice of not having a meeting. If you don't get notice of not, we're having a meeting,
Every Wednesday.
yes.
I think I'm gonna miss the 5th.
Oh, now where are you gonna be?
I'm getting out of Dodge, they're coming in demolition of my kitchen and my bathroom, the 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Oh, and they gotta have a supervisor, huh?
No, I'm leaving, I'm getting out of the house, I'm not gonna.
On September 15th, I think that's this
That's
Saturday.
tomorrow. September
The 15th, yes, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Yep.
They're doing
Uh,
Tremont now.
Parker Mills Pond, the dam assessment project. They're having a meeting, it's 5:30 to 7 at the Tremont Nail Factory. And they're asking for just one informational comments and what you have an opinion as to what may happen out there. And you'll find if the details come out, that's a huge dam. I never think how large it was. And let's see, from, Alan sent me this. I can give you if you want to read it, Alan. This is from the MMA and the LGAC. And that was from the appropriations, the FY '23 budget. Chapter 70 has gone up. And I can give you, 500 million, but that doesn't mean anything to us as far as what we're gonna receive, the minimum for students in depressed areas goes to $60 per student. And the circuit breaker has been increased by 440 million, and that's one of the line items, that's the grants they get for charter school reimbursement has been increased. Rural aid has been increased. And let's see, safety issues have been, and then the health insurance, 37 million added for school safety training and programs. What else we got? Nothing really. I mean, they're all interesting. I'll copy you on all of this.
Yeah, that's the first time we've ever seen that. Was helpful.
Coming up on the November 5th, the Association of Town Finance Committees in Sharon at the Sharon Community Center. They're putting on seminars, goes all day Saturday, including lunch. The details are supposed to be out probably within next week. I'll make sure it gets out to you. And they have workshops going on in the morning and in the afternoon.
What day is that?
The November
Saturday.
5th, which I think is a Saturday. Breakfast, they have breakfast at 8:15.
That the building down by Master Park? It is, right? Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, I think so.
Want to send us a copy of that?
Yes.
It's like on an island. It's a nice location.
The only reason I got this at my last meeting, but I hadn't had the application
Yep.
for it, and I was just holding on for that.
I just, just like,
And that's it for the highlights of the meeting. Any comments? Question? Alan, you want to?
When you forward that out to everybody, read through carefully what I submit. I usually give it to the town administrator, assuming bad word, that it goes out to the boards and stuff that are involved with all this stuff. I've been doing this for like 8 years now. There is in there things talking about COLA and retirement boards. The state has decided in their infinite wisdom to allow an increase of 5.5%. That is going to definitely affect our budgets.
Yes. In fact, I'm not sure the COLA is involved, but there's another incentive that's coming down in which the teachers will have a certain incentive to retire 2 years early.
There's also the student loan
They can
for any
come back.
municipal employee that has student loans outstanding.
Yes.
Has been paying for them over 10 years. The federal government is looking to wipe out whatever they have left for balance. I think they have to apply by October 31st or something like
Yeah.
that. That's also in the listing I gave.
The big one, Social Security going up 8.6%.
Yeah.
Where is the Fed gonna get the money?
Just print it.
Modern monetary
I'll go
theory.
print
They do such volume, they have their own print shop.
Yeah, they do.
Own sweatshop, yeah.
But the problem with the 2 years added to the retirement for the teachers, I was talking with Scott, the principal of the high school, they're looking for teachers.
Yeah.
There aren't any out there. I mean, the graduating class is more or less just filling in for what they have. They can't fill in these spaces that are being created. You know, in the normal turnover, they can do that, but there's,
300,000
Yeah.
teachers were short.
yeah,
Well, they're looking for teachers, nurses, you name it, they're looking for it.
Right.
help on the signs
everywhere.
yeah, yes, ma'am.
Just an update real quick, for Upper Tech. Wareham has 29 more students than last year going, so that's probably an increase of around 480,000.
Wasn't the budget projecting a reduction of 20?
There was a reduction last year, and we saved money last year. This year there's 29 more,
So there's went from 235 to 254?
29 more students this year.
Wow.
Shouldn't that-
So you're looking at a $480,000 increase.
I thought it's $10,000 or $11,000 a student. Yeah,
Yeah, they're cheaper than
they're a lot less expensive than we are.
our
I
operating.
understand that, but you have capital built into that, there's expenses built into that.
But is that representative of what's happening for all communities or just Wareham?
Well, Wareham has pretty much an increase. Bourne senior class is actually more Bourne students going to Upper Tech than there is the Bourne High School.
Interesting.
Marion has an increase, Sandwich has a decrease, but Wareham has the biggest increase, Tom.
And Dominic, last meeting when chairman of the selectmen as well as the superintendent and business manager were here, when we were initially going over the invoices, we took them to task too about how they treat Upper Cape in terms of having the encouraging students to take a look at it as an additional, educational opportunity.
And when I brought it up, they looked at me like I was crazy.
That's a 10%.
He seemed really positive, the superintendent seemed really
Yeah.
positive about
Yeah.
making sure that it gets done.
I'm just saying, every kid should have the opportunity, that's all. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm liking the new superintendent, I'm liking
Yeah.
I'm liking how transparent he's been so far and how much he's already got accomplished. So he's just.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye,
Opposed?
You wanna go
Maybe
to
I ought to
that,
ask the clerk to take a roll call.
wanna go to that sewer commission meeting with me, not this Thursday, next Thursday, raise some hell?
Oh, you and I don't agree on any of that. No, I'll certainly go with you.
I know you're a septic person, but you still understand what I'm trying to get funds for the.
I think the whole,
I
this
completely.
whole, by bedrooms and all that,
understand, but
why
what
they're
it-
not paying by usages, just makes me crazy.
Don't do
But
it.
that's me.
But, I mean,
And
we all agree with you,
somebody told me I was
John. We're
nuts
not-
when I
we're
said you
not-
save water.
we're not against it,
I
but
know
what
you're
do we
not
do?
against, I know you're not against it, but I've been bringing it up for 2 years and they haven't done nothing.
Dominic,
But what-
next
what
time we
can we
discuss
do?
this issue,
Yes,
I
sir.
would suggest we put up a motion to advise the sewer commissioners to investigate the benefits of changing their billing. 'Cause I have an idea that under current circumstances, they just change the billing, they'll still increase their revenues without having to overall increase the rates.
You know, even if they charged everyone $250 for every resident or every apartment, whatever, in the town, that's half the town. That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge. And then they need the money. The sewer plant is very important to us. They need the money, okay? And the whole town benefits from it. They benefit from the growth.
Yeah.
They benefit from the clean water. But half the town ain't paying for
The
it.
renters benefit and they pay nothing.
No, because the landlord pays, trust me, I pay like $15,000 a year to
You pass that
sewer.
on, Joe, in your rent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the rent is rent, you can't get more than what,
The
Market bids.
That's right.
So, but it's an
Wrong-
expensive
wrong
bond, that's
business.
okay, that expense is, I don't have a problem with that expense. But what I'm saying is,
Dominic,
like I brought up at the town vote,
bring up also what the progression of rate increases has been for the sewer department users.
it's been huge,
Yeah.
No, it-
over the last 5 years.
No,
No.
no, it has not been. And it-
Previous to the last 5 years,
The
it
one they
was
just, the one they just put in is not effective until next year. So they have not been keeping up with their costs.
and I agree with you, and I
Okay.
agree 100%
All right,
with you,
so-
Tom. But, for instance, like I brought up before, when they're gonna go to town hall to vote, okay, town meeting to vote. Everyone can vote at town meeting.
We heard this, yes.
Okay, you heard it. So that's not fair. That's such a disjustice of everything in the world. You're voting to spend more money.
You're darn tootin', boy.
But it's not the town that's doing it.
I brought forward two articles
So I'm
that
gonna
charge the
send,
whole
I'm
town
gonna
for a
send
sewer
you my,
project, and they didn't pass.
pump out bill.
No, the pump out bill you can
They were
deduct
for
from the money
commercial
that you can
property.
spend. No, I agree with that.
You know, Stowe-
So if you get it, so if you pay $250 a year, and you pump out, it costs you whatever it costs you, you can deduct that.
And
I need to see the
Okay? But the people, there's a lot of people who don't pump out, because they have one
I
person and the
I
septic
just-
system never needs to be
I
pumped.
live on this
For
side.
2 days after town, or 3 days after.
But the biggest
I'm
problem
not
is
gonna
when
be
we're
around.
showing the money.
I understand.